Hello, everybody. Let's see. We're almost ready to go. Katie, are you ready? Are you ready to record?
I'm ready. Yep.
Okay.
Recording in progress.
So good evening, everyone. I'll wait until we hit exactly 7 o'clock.
Lyle, we don't see you.
Ah, that's puzzling.
You're striped
Right.
blue.
Okay. No, that's puzzling. Let me try again.
You disappeared again.
That is weird. I can let me close this down and see if that makes a difference. I'm plugged into you can hear me all right, right?
Oh yeah.
This is strange. This is the problem of operating in the home environment. I will try again on a different computer. Let's see if this works.
Yeah, something might be wrong with your camera.
Yeah, well, that's odd.
We saw you at the beginning, I thought.
Oh,
Yeah.
that was my picture, I think.
No, we saw you at the beginning.
Oh, okay. Um, that's downright weird. Okay, okay. All right, that should do it. All right. I'm in a puzzling position of being invisible but audible. There's
Yeah,
probably,
it's okay. You can probably do it that way. It'll
as long
work.
as you all are comfortable with that. I mean, wait a minute,
Oh, there you are. Whoops. Your camera is trying hard.
it's trying hard. Come on, camera, do something. All right, well, it keeps cutting in and out. All right, folks, let's not hold up the show. And if you're willing to let me talk as opposed to be visible. This is a meeting of the Zoning and Planning Committee. This is an unusual meeting in the sense it's virtual, and you can see now I'm visible. I don't know exactly how this works.
Don't talk about it. You look good. Don't jinx it.
Don't don't do anything. All right. Um, but I'm Lyle Baker. I'm chair of the committee and present at the start of the meeting. We have our colleagues, and I will try and recognize people as I see them on the screen. Councillor Albright, Ward 2, Councillor Vicki Danberg is here, but I don't see her, but I see her name. And Councillor Josh Krinsman, Ward 4, Vicki Danberg, Ward 6, Vice President of Council David Kalis, Ward 8, Vice Chair Councillor Oliver. We are joined also, I think, by the problem is my screen keeps saying who's getting admitted, but Katie, you manage that. Councillor Wright, also joined by from the planning department, Barney Heath, the director, Ms. Kreitzer, and Zachary Lamel. And let's see, have I missed anybody? Councillor Block is not a member of the committee, but joined us. And I think that I've got everybody that I can see. So thank you all. This is an experiment in that this is an all virtual meeting. In other words, we're not in the committee room as we normally are, but this is the Monday before Thanksgiving, and we have two items before us, and I hope we can make sense of them relatively quickly. And let me just indicate the two items are 375 24-2, which is the discussion of amendments to Chapter 30 to allow certain routine residential alterations by right, specifically to allow additions to buildings with existing non-conforming height that increase the non-conforming height but do not go higher than the existing ridge line. This item was recommitted, and I was the person that asked for it to be recommitted, and I'll explain my rationale in a minute. But the other item is 4424. These are the inclusionary zoning ordinance. And I think it's fair to say that we are in accord on almost everything, but there was one amendment that we did not consider in committee that Councillor Wright wanted to propose at the floor of the council. And because of it had not been discussed in committee, I thought it would be appropriate to accept it if she moved to recommittal, and so the council voted that, and so we will discuss that. And those are the only two items on the agenda. We have some other items coming up in the next meeting where we will discuss climate action, and then also some leftover items that I don't expect us to tackle this term that we need to NAN, but I'm not going to try and do those tonight. So let me explain, if we can, then the rationale for the first one and ask for some discussion, and I'll tell you what I would propose. This item, I think, is meritorious. This is the idea of allowing non-conforming buildings to be altered as of right. We also received an email today from Jay Walter from the Building Professionals, and I commit everyone's attention to that. That indicates support for the item, but also to look at another iteration of it in the future, but that's not before us. The reason that this was concerned to me is that the example we had was one project, and I didn't know how many of these had come up, but the context of it that I thought was important to understand is that the normal height rules, because we've modified our height rule to say that the height is measured from the finished grade rather than from the, from the previous grade rather than the finished grade, could produce a potential hardship to a property owner who is on a sloping lot. And the example given was the Lincoln Street project. The planning department prepared a memo in response, which basically summarized what they'd indicated before. But I want to indicate what I would, unless Mr. Lamel would like to take us through that again, I think we all have seen that, and unless he needs to, explain what I would like to see us consider. And that is that the context is where the project is such that the height can't be met appropriately because of sloping terrain. And it seemed to me that that's precisely the situation that we ought to have some potential special permit oversight, or at least some additional protection in terms of setback for an abutter, because the abutter is most likely to be even further downhill from the proposed addition, and therefore the addition will loom more large than it would otherwise. And therefore, it seemed to me I would like to vote for this item, but I would like to do it with some sense that there are an additional protection for those property owners. And one of the things that occurred to me is to just say that for those situations to apply, at least the setbacks that would apply to new lots in that particular zoning district would apply in this case in order to trigger the as of right relief. If there were anything otherwise, it could obviously go to special permit. And these are relatively rare situations anyway, so I think the special permit could still be appropriate, but that's where I am. But I want to see where other people are on the committee. I see Councilor Oliver's hand and Councilor Albright's hand, I believe.
Yeah, excuse me. Apologies, Councilor Baker, but you mentioned we have an email from or letter from Mr. Walter.
Yes.
I don't have that.
I just saw something this afternoon. It's not formally part of this record. I just wanted to acknowledge it's not a public hearing.
I can forward it to you, Counselor Oliver. We got it late this afternoon. I'll forward it to you.
Yeah, please do. I really don't. Me no gots. Or I don't see it anyway, but-
You weren't on the email.
Okay, now I'm offended.
I rarely get email myself that I can read, so that's a whole nother story. Okay, did you have any substantive comment, Councilor Oliver, or do you on the question?
I don't know. I thought that comment was fairly substantive, but other than that, no.
No, I mean on the idea.
No, not at this point.
Okay,
at this
okay. Councilor Albright and then Councilor Danberg.
Thank you. So my question to Zach is the actual height of the building changing, or is it just because of the slope? It's changing because it's measured from a different slope.
The
Well-
actual height of the building is not changing in that it's not allowed to go above the existing ridge line.
Okay.
But there would be an addition that is extending outward that wasn't there before.
So how high could an addition be?
So the way that the language is written is that the addition can't go any higher than the existing ridge line. And so in theory, the only homes that are taller than 36 feet are allowed to utilize this. So somewhere above 36 feet. However, in practice, given what's happening in this situation is that you're applying an addition to a portion of the property where it's sloping away, is the other rules and regulations within zoning really come into play here. FAR, lot coverage, setbacks, number of stories, right? So I think really what ends up happening in this situation is that in essence, the addition really cannot go up to the ridge line because almost in any given situation, that would create more than 2.5 stories. Because potentially taking the basement, which is not considered a story, and making that from a zoning perspective the first floor, and that's not allowed as part of this. And so what you see are these kind of subordinate additions of 1, 2, 1.5 stories.
Okay, that was my only question, and I'm satisfied with the ordinance as it exists. And I know a number of us wanted to apply it to by right housing as well. So I guess we're not going to do that tonight, but I'm satisfied.
Okay,
Thank you.
Counselor Danberg.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for for calling on me. I'm just looking at some notes that I had here. I think that this is a good change. I can see that there could easily be a problem if the building is on a slope, because if the slope slopes down, for example, the person would be penalized and not able to go up as high on the building, on the rear of the building, let's say, as they could. If we gave them the benefit of the doubt and allowed it to be taller because we are measuring it from a new grade as opposed to the original grade. So I don't have a problem with this. I think that I would be prepared to move approval when the time comes.
Okay, Counselor Wright.
Thank you. Yes, kind of addressing Counselor Albright's and Mr. Lamel's comments and stuff. So, I mean, technically, a house could be 10 feet taller, but like Mr. Lamel said, then you got, 3 stories and FAR, and then you got to take in the basement, and then all that is going to come into effect. So I think you won't get that drastic change, a few inches, a foot, whatever, but not real drastic ones, or they wouldn't be able to do it unless a special permit. And yeah, I did see just before this meeting, Mr. Walters' email, which would be nice to get it a day before, just before the meeting. And we've gotten some letters on, I think people were just like 2 inches off or 3 inches off, and they have to do a special permit, which I think is kind of ridiculous when you're, doing something, especially it's just inches, but it's not part of this. So is it that we won't, and this is back to the chair, we won't be able to bring that up until next year?
No, leaving aside the as a right, just this item will come out on Monday.
Yeah, but I mean the as a right ones,
No, we can't
and
do
we've
that.
got-
That we have to wait on.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying for next year.
Yeah. Somebody could docket the item and then we could take it up then.
Okay, because I mean, what this is addressing, I think, is fewer than the by right instances.
Yeah,
And-
no, it's clearly a non-conforming structure. Mr. Lamel, you want to add anything? Did your hand go up?
I was going to just say 2 other points, but I can save them until it's not
Oh,
specifically
go ahead,
related to this.
unless somebody else has something to say.
Well, I was going to just say 2 other pieces that I would mention is that before the height was measured changed, what would end up happening in this scenario is the person would build out their addition, to the setback line. And if there was a lot of grade, they'd build retaining walls and they'd build retaining walls at the property line, up to 4 feet tall, right? And that would be by right. Or they would have been just at the edge of the setback line and built up a retaining wall as tall as they wanted. So there's no incentive to do that anymore. So I think the addition here, which again is very, very limited in nature, is going to have to be done without this series of retaining walls, or there's no incentive to do, any series of retaining walls. And then the second piece that is particularly when it comes to the side, is that the facade ratio was approved recently. And so if that side addition is up front of the house, you also have to run into the facade ratio requirements. And so either A, if it's over if it's over 1.5 stories, then that 60%, gets triggered maximum. So that'll limit it. And then the second piece is that if they want to avoid that 60%, then the addition they're adding will have to be 1.5 stories or less. So kind of inherently, less intensive and to the neighboring property.
Okay, all right, that's helpful. Anyone else that should be heard? I don't hear a lot of support for amending this further, so I'm not going to move my amendment. I'm just going to ask for Councilor Danberg to make her motion.
I move that we approve.
Okay, thank you. And our colleagues, thank you for indulging me about this because I want to make sure we don't create an unintended consequence, but I'm somewhat reassured by what Mr. Lamel has indicated in additional protections. So, okay, all those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Okay, the item's approved, and then we'll send it back out to committee, the full council on Monday. The second item is 4424. This is the inclusionary zoning, and there's a attachment in the packet that consists of the memorandum from the planning department that explains all of the changes we've made. And again, this is a very complicated process we all know very well because we participated in it. But now we come to the last outstanding question, which we had not discussed, and that involves the question of the contribution either in kind as of right within a certain size threshold. So I'm going to ask if Councilor Wright would just explain her item. I've asked the planning department for a comment and then ask Councilor Wright to explain the rationale for her item. I just want to make sure everybody is clear on what she wants to propose. So if you don't mind, Councilor Wright taking it in 2 stages, and then you can take it from there. Is that agreeable?
Okay, so what I was proposing, so the changes to the IZ right now, the in lieu of is 7 to 9 units, and then above that we're requiring units to be built on site. And so our changes to the IZ when we reviewed it is to make that in lieu of payment, instead of 7 to 9, to go to 7 to 19 for both rentals and for ownership. And I would like to see just rentals and not ownership. And the main reason is that the money that goes from in lieu of goes to the housing trust and somewhere else and to build more affordable housing, but they're only building affordable rental housing. So we're going to lose, ownership at that bottom end of the market where, some of our counselors would probably be able to possibly get a condo at 80% AMI, family of 4 of 132,000, a 2-bedroom would be $284,000, and the
Okay,
market rate
let me ask
units
you
are
to,
not there. Okay, that's it. Yeah,
Let's
so I
just
just
pause.
want to get rid of I want to take out the 7, leave 7 to 9 for ownership, and then expand it for rentals to 19.
yeah, so the committee report originally would stay for the rental, but you would omit
Yes.
committee report for the ownership units. Okay, is that fair
Yes.
summary? I want to ask the planning department to have any comment Mr. Heath, or Ms. Kreitzer is here also. We've been also joined, I should indicate, by Counselor Farrell, not a member of the committee, but welcome, and also Peter Doringer from the Planning Board. And then I'll recognize Counselor Albright after I hear from Planning Department, but I want to give Counselor Wright a full opportunity to explain it, and then we'll discuss it. So I'll go back to her, but Mr. Heath?
I think Laura's going to respond first.
Oh, okay, Ms. Kreitzer? Yeah.
Thank you. I think our preference is to keep it consistent and the same for both rental and ownership. Part of the reason of that is that I think we do not want to encourage the creation of one type of unit versus another. And my personal concern is that if we set a lower threshold of 9 units for ownership units, that will discourage developers from doing ownership, and that we're only going to have rental units going forward. So I think it could actually have the opposite effect that's intended here, that more rental developments might be created. I also just wanted to note, I think you mentioned that the funding to the trust is only for rental housing, and there is no requirement that it only be used for rental housing. To date, that's what we've done, but that's no reason we couldn't do ownership in the future if that kind of project came in and was something that the city thought would be helpful.
Okay. So I want to thank you very much. Any further comment from the Planning Department? And Ms. Kreitzer, we welcome your colleague.
Thank you.
Councilor Wright, do you want to just finish any further explanation you want to make, and then we'll come to other people on the committee?
Yes, so, well, I want to address 2 of those, and it is correct. It's not limiting the partnership to just rentals, but that's all they've done in the past is rentals, and they have quite a few of those. And I don't want to lose the ownership part, but when a developer comes in, they're either going to build for rentals or for sale. You know, a developer comes in who just build condos and they're for sale. That's all they do. They don't want to take on the burden of managing a property. So I think if we limited it down to 9 for ownership, I don't think that's going to make a difference for the amount of developers for ownership for rentals, because it's 2 different types of developers. It's not the same ones. And again, there's not a lot of ownership possibilities in that price range as it is in the city, and cutting it off. I mean, and Mr. Heath has said in the past is that generally developers are going to take the in lieu of. Very seldom do we get a unit instead of the payment. So we are going to lose a lot more ownership units in the city. There is building quite a few rentals in the city, so I'm not worried about that, but I'm worried about the ownership possibilities.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let me go to now members of the committee. Councilor Albright?
I think Counselor Danberg was first, but I'll be.
No, the problem is that my screen is not picking up everybody. It just says somebody
Okay.
raised hands, so I can't
Okay.
quite see who's who.
Okay,
Right.
happy to go first. So I looked at the list of housing on the SHI, and there are very, very, very few that are in the 7 to 19 category. I think there are 7 of them, if I remember correctly, at all. And I think only one of them was ownership. There were some other ownerships, but they were all by the Home Buyer Assistance Program. There was only one that was ownership. So I don't think we're losing anything. In fact, we might be gaining something if we do it the other way, because maybe this is blocking people creating 7 to 19 unit projects. And maybe by having this in lieu thing, maybe we'll get more of them. Who knows? But even so, we weren't getting very many ownership units, only one, as I recall. So I really think this is something worth trying.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you. Let me go. I'm having in order. I've got Councilor Danberg, Councilor Kalis, and then Councilor Oliver. Councilor Danberg.
Thank you. Chair Baker. I agree with everything that, that both Ms. Kreitzer and Counselor Albright have said. And in addition to that, I'd like to bring up, actually, Counselor, we just began a discussion actually of the, Counselor Wright, of the issue of property management. When these units are built, and they're built, let's say, one here, one there, one somewhere else, and they're scattered all over the city in small buildings where there's only one, maybe two affordable units, it becomes an enforcement nightmare, because the city is responsible, if you will remember, for enforcing and doing keeping track of all the paperwork. And we don't have staff for that. It becomes a real problem to try for the staff to try and enforce this year after year when these units are scattered all over the city. If, however, there are more units in one building, it's much easier to enforce and to keep track of. There's also another issue that I would bring up about ownership, in addition to the fact that we're not getting a lot of ownership properties because developers are keeping it under a certain number because it behooves them to do that. Remember that when Ann Houston spoke to us at the last meeting, she reminded us that the Housing Authority and the Housing Trust prefer that the developers give payment in lieu, because if the developer is going to build one, and let's say it costs $650,000 to build, because that's the number, if that $650,000 that would build one unit were given to the city instead and split between the two groups, that money can be leveraged from, she said, 7 to 10 times. So we could get many more units and would be able to build many more units than if we were just to get the one unit that was required to be built by the developer. I just think it's a no-brainer. If we're trying to get as many affordable units as possible, then should we not be going for the match? And they require matching funds. The grants require matching funds. So the more money that's in the coffers toward matching funds, the more units we can get. There's another issue that in ownership, and that is that if there is, let's say there is a 7-unit building and it's got 6 market rate units and one inclusionary unit, the price has been low. Let's say the person bought it for $285,000, and let's say that the monthly fee is kept low. There's going to come a time when all the owners want to get together because they need to do upgrades. They need to paint the building. They want to do upgrades in the garage, or spend some money for other things in the building. The other 6 people are going to have easier access to means to be able to do that. And it will become a hardship for the person with the inclusionary unit very often. And that person cannot afford to do what the other 6 people are asking for. So we're, in a way, setting ourselves up for a problem and conditions that, sorry about my dog, conditions that are going to be made difficult for that person in the inclusionary unit. Whereas if it's in a building with a number of units, it's much easier to control that. So I will stop there and go on silent so that my dog won't bother anybody here.
At least Counselor Danberg, your dog is at home. The last time we talked about your dog, it was out and you were chasing it, but I think that was a while back. Anyway, Counselor Kalis I have, and then, let's see, I've got, Counselor Oliver, then Counselor Block, and coming back to Counselor Wright.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Very quickly, I think this is worth trying. I hear what Counselor Wright is saying about these homeowners versus rentals, so I would support the motion.
You mean her amendment, right?
Her amendment, yeah, thank
Okay.
you.
Counselor Oliver.
Great, thank you again, Chair. So I concur with Councilors Kalis and Wright, which is why I voted to not support this particular, or because I was supportive of this, I did not vote for the full IZ before it went to council. There are a couple of things that concern me. I recognize that Councilor Danberg is, where she's coming from with her comment recently, most recently about the IZ unit owners' inability perhaps to cover the full HOA monthly. But I'd rather just deal with what's in front of us. Like that seems incredibly anecdotal and maybe if come kind of situation. So in my mind, I can't consider that to be real until it is, until we have like hard evidence there. I also heard from Ms. Kreitzer, the housing trust and the housing authority, if there were some guarantee or some way for us to, and I'm not advocating for this, I'm just going to say that right up front. I'm not advocating for this, but there's because the city hasn't built, right, any or many ownership units, I think that that's a pattern. And from my perspective, we are seeing predominantly rental units being built in the city. And fine, great, that's super. I want to see a balance. I want to see us get at that. When I was first elected to the city council, that was one of the big topics that we wrestled with, was starting to create opportunities for intergenerational wealth. Well, here we go. Home ownership is a really big deal on that particular topic. I continue to be incredibly supportive of this amendment, i.e. Councilor Wright's amendment. And the last point I really wanted to make is, and I don't want to lose sight of this, and I forget who pointed it out originally. It might have been Councilor Wright, it might have been myself, it might have been Councilor Getz. The math that was presented to us by Ms. Houston included some numbers that were not apples to apples. In other words, I'm just going to come right out and say it. I do not believe in the mathematics behind that multiplier number. I think there's a multiplier, but I think the math that were shown there was unpersuasive because it glossed over some really important facts, in my opinion. And for that reason, I'm going to continue to support leaving the ownership unit threshold where we are today, which is 9 units. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll recognize Counselor Block and I'll come back to you, Counselor Wright.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate the chance to comment. I want to raise a different balance question than what Councilor Oliver was talking about, and that's the distribution of our affordable housing units. I did an analysis of where these are by ward. It's kind of hard to do it by neighborhood since one can dispute neighborhood boundaries. And I submitted this to the Affordable Housing Trust several months ago. 28% of our affordable housing units are in Ward 1, 22% in Ward 4. Then there's a big drop off among all the other wards. And it feels more comfortable to me that we should accept whenever possible units from developers, so that we don't tilt our own efforts in the direction of the least expensive land in Newton, because that is very likely going to further concentrate the affordable housing units. And I think it's just a matter of principle that all neighborhoods should participate in this, ideally equally. That's never going to happen. But I don't think as a policy matter, we should do anything that would further concentrate the percentage of units that we have. And I just ask that the committee consider that when they make their judgments about, what the cutoff should be for cashing out versus not cashing out. And that's the particular issue that's in front of you. I fully understand it would be nice to have more cash to work with, and I support that in principle, but I'm not sure this is the best way to do it. So that's just my comment on this. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for being willing to come to our committee and express your views. We appreciate that. Councilor Wright, I see two other hands up that I'd like to answer, and then come back to you, if that's all right. Councilor Albright, and then Ms. Kreitzer.
So I was just trying to count the number of properties on the SHI. I think there are, I don't know, Ms. Kreitzer, you and Mr. Heath, you probably know this better than I do. It looked like there's about 110 roughly. I was trying to count the lines quickly. And only one of them is home ownership between 7 and 19 units. So we don't have a lot of these. We're not, we haven't produced very many of these. If we were trying to make this more of a thing, then maybe an incentive program is what we should be looking for. But I don't think we're going to get very many of these, if any. And the money could go into a better cause or a more fruitful cause. The other thing I wanted to say is that, and Ms. Kreitzer or Mr. Heath, you can probably talk about this better than I can. When you have an affordable unit that you own, you don't benefit from all the equity that goes with the unit. You're limited to a certain increase above that because it's an affordable unit. So it's not like we're doing a whole bunch of good for a lot of people, because they're not going to gain the equity that you might gain if you own your house, and if it was $500,000 yesterday and $1 million, you benefit from the whole 500,000. Affordable homeowners don't get that kind of benefit from the equity. Ms. Kreitzer, or if you speak next, maybe you could explain that better than I can.
Thank you, Councilor. Ms. Kreitzer.
Thank you. Yes, you're absolutely right. So when we put an affordable housing restriction on a property, on a condo unit, say for a household, it includes a calculation of how the next sale price will be determined. And it allows for some equity, but it also has to keep the unit affordable to the next person who's buying. So it's not going to make what the market is doing right now. I would say what it does give is security in knowing what your bills are in a way that rental units aren't always able to do. But you're right, you don't get the same equity at the end of the day. I also wanted to point out, well, the SHI has almost everything we have in the city, particularly homebuyer units, which were done by Can Do, did a lot of them, a lot of smaller organizations. You have to be very careful in how you market and how you do your lotteries. And SHI didn't always let us include everything that we have. So there are units in the city that aren't on the SHI that we're still working to get added on as they come up for resales. but to your point, that we do have a far fewer of them than we do of rental units. The other thing I just wanted to mention is, Councilor Wright had mentioned most developers kind of know what they want to do. What we've found recently in particular is that a lot of developers are changing their mind over the course of the project. It starts as rental, they consider ownership, they go back and forth. So it's not always a given how it's going to be done when it gets permitted. Some have come back in and gotten permission to change it. We have home ownership units coming online soon on Walnut Street in the Newton Highlands. We had some that just came online in the Beacon. I know Walnut Street is one of those ones that changed their mind about it several times before deciding to be ownership. And I guess for me, that's an example where if we change the calculation to be different for rental than ownership, that probably would have impacted what they decided to do.
Okay, anyone else? I want to go back to Councilor Wright, and then I'll recognize, well, Councilor Oliver. I'll recognize myself last, but Councilor Wright, and I'm going to let you, and then I'll go to Councilor Oliver.
Okay, thank you. A quick question to Ms. Kreitzer. Were there any changes? I could see going from rental to ownership, but were there projects that went from ownership to rentals?
It's a good question. I'll have to check. I know that the two that have been done most recently ended up as ownership units, but we could check and see. A lot of these were, of course, permitted a couple years ago before I was as involved in the program as I am now. So I could check in on that.
Yeah, because again, I think, it's easier. I mean, so I own units, and being a landlord, there's a lot to go into that. And most people don't want to do that, and with the ownership, you build them, you sell them, they're gone, type of thing. So I can see, going from a rental, and you're willing to do a rental and all the headaches that go with that, to ownership. But going the other way, I don't think that happens very often. I was surprised by Councilor Albright that we had so few, because I know there is a bunch of other ones there that, like you said, Ms. Kreitzer, that aren't on the SHI, or, there's not a lot of, you don't really see that. So I wanted to address a couple of things from Councilor Danberg. And I totally understand about the property management for the rentals, and that has to be done every year. But for ownership, it's only done when it's sold. And yes, people aren't going to make as much money equity in it as market rate houses, but there will make some. And they're also, and again, HUD is determining what the price is when they sell it, a couple of years down the road or 10 years down the road. But also their money is going towards buying down their mortgage too, versus kind of throwing it away at rent. So there is some equity, but not as much as, houses have increased here in the recent past. And what Councilor Oliver said, and I talked briefly with Ms. Houston, and I really want her to fix it, because people will come back screaming at us because we're not doing what we're saying. So her data showing that, they can build 7 times more units, that's the multiplier, than what a developer can do, I thought had some issues with it. And they were using housing costs from pre-COVID, and cost for development, pre-COVID versus now is not the same. So I mean, for those units, there should have been a multiplier factor on it. And then she included the homeless shelter, and those are just rooms, they're not apartments, but she referred, that data was used as apartments, and that's not apples to apples. And I agree, there is a multiplier there, but it isn't 7 with what she used there. And second, if we use that, then when the housing trust gets, $1 million, and we're saying it costs $650,000 to build one, and you can do 7 times more, so we expect that every time they got $1 million, we should see 10 or 11 affordable units. And I don't think it's going to quite go like that. And so, and then the residents and you know, people from Newton are going to be on us is like, why isn't it? Because that's what you said. So that document definitely needs to be updated. But still, you know, I would rather not do this, you know, keep it to 7 and 9. And if it's an issue, then, you know, we can change it. And look, we have a 71 unit ownership property, which they're going and asking for a special permit to give payment in lieu of. So even if, you know, 7 and 9 and they want to do a payment in lieu of, they can. First of all, it's probably a special permit unless it's in VCOD. And, you know, that's something they can ask for. So I'd rather just keep it there for now. And, you know, we revisit it in a year or two and see if it did make a difference. Thank you.
So, I'm going to go to Councilor Oliver and then the planning director. And then again, I'll go last. Councilor Oliver.
Great, thank you, sir. So I'm just gonna kind of, in my typical fashion, I am gonna point out that several councilors helped me just make my point, as well as Ms. Kreitzer. So what you're saying is there's a chance that these folks do get equity when they sell the unit or when they, you know, give up the unit. I recognize it's not, you know, the full boat, if you will, of the increase in equity, but it's equity. And I think it's important that we're doing whatever we can, and that's something we can do. So again, still all for Councilor Wright's version of this, but thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Heath.
Yeah, good debate tonight. Setting aside the debate about whether homeownership is better than rental, I think that's its whole other debate this evening. I think the issue is that the dollars that would come from an in lieu payment would, and there could be some debate about how many units and what kind of units could be created. There'd be more units and deeper affordability. So we'd be serving a lower income population than a prospective homeowner. You could debate about the merits of that, but I think the numbers that Ann put together, I agree, there are probably some things in there you could look at and quibble over. But the fact is there'll be more units, they'll serve deeper affordability. They might even serve homeless families at some point, as well as we saw with the Navigation Center, the West Newton Navigation Center. But I think it really comes down to that issue. More units, deeper affordability versus homeownership.
Thank you. Councilor Kalis, before I recognize you, I want to just say that, Mr. Heath, I'm grateful to you for coming tonight virtually, but we're grateful to you all along. I'm not sure we have many items to which you can speak at the next meeting, and I want to just indicate that I've appreciated you and your colleagues. I don't always agree with you, but you've come to us from time and time again to try and explain the perspective that you have, and I think you've explained it well. And I just want to say that I'm, one, as chair, I'm grateful to you, and I just wanted to indicate that in case, I hope that you will come at our last meeting, when we do it in person, and I can say something then, but just in case there's a mishap, I wanted to acknowledge it tonight. And,
I understand there's going to be food at the last meeting, so that's all.
I hope so. This is a conversation the vice chair and I have to have. Neither of us, well, I can't speak for myself, but I'm not much of a cook, but we'll figure something out. Anyway, but thank you. Councilor Vice President Kalis.
Chair Baker, it's terrific that you just made those comments. I think those are totally appropriate, and yeah, we'll miss you, Mr. Heath. I just wanted to, I think this was great discussion, but I wanted to say that we review this every 3 years, is it?
5,
So
I think.
3 to 5. So none of this is permanent, and I think that, again, I hear all the arguments against, but I think it's worth trying and seeing what happens, because we've never done it. So That's all I have.
Okay, anybody else? Recognize everybody that wants to speak?
Wait,
So
wait.
I'm just going to indicate that I actually am going to support this item. I think Mr. Heath encapsulated it properly. We have a choice of more units or a particular quality of unit, and this is one of those trade-offs that I think is worth trying to see if we can get a little more of the home ownership in the mix, and therefore I think it's worth the experiment of making a distinction. So I'll support the amendment. Councilor Oliver and Councilor Albright, I'm sorry, I didn't see whose hand was up first. They were quick.
It
I-
looks
I-
like Councilor Albright was up first.
Yeah, I'll
Okay,
just be quick. I just want to say to Counselor Kalis, this is not something new. This is something we've been doing since the beginning of inclusionary zoning to require them to do a unit. So what's new is to ask them to do in lieu instead. So you're not asking for something new, you're asking for the same thing all over again.
But
That's
it's
all.
not rental. It's on
No,
the,
on the rental, it's different. On the home ownership, it's exactly the same.
We're keeping our current structure. You're correct. Thank you, Councilor Albright. Councilor Oliver.
Great, thank you. I appreciate it. Like, I didn't anticipate jumping in again, but I do think that Councilor Block made a fantastic point that we should not lose sight of. I think that to me is, the point of where the units are sited and how they're kind of, integrated, so to speak, across the city, I think is an important aspect to consider here. And I also think that if we are already at a, I have no idea what the ratio is, but we know we're getting a much higher degree or number of rental units already. This might actually accelerate that kind of, well, I hope it doesn't, but it could accelerate more, in lieu of payments for apartments. I think we're going to be able to, I think what we might get here is exactly what Mr. Heath is talking about. We are going to see an increase of funds going into the Affordable Trust and into Newton Housing Authority. And that's a good thing. So I am going to be very curious to see how this shapes up and see if, anything does or what does improve, because I think we're going to see some improvements, obviously, otherwise I wouldn't be voting for it. But thank you again. I'm going to stop talking to this item. I think I've made my position pretty clear. Thank you.
I think you have. So, Councilor Wright, I'm assuming you're moving your amendment. Now, the committee had already taken this item and voted it out as indicated without the division between rental and, so the motion really has to be to amend the committee vote of the last time in order to add this as a different model. So I just want to be clear procedurally where we are as I understand it. Anybody disagree? Please say so.
Sounds right.
So, Councilor Wright, you want to move an amendment to the prior report? You're muted, I think.
Yep, I want to move from the prior report and make the change of not changing ownership and leaving it at 7 to 9 units.
Okay, but we would adopt the other recommendation, which would make the rental units up to 19.
Yes.
Well, in fact, all of the edits would be in place with the exception.
All of the other
this.
edits would be in place. We're not modifying any of that. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Okay, let's just see where we are. I'd like if those in favor of the proposed amendment would raise your hand so that we can get a clear count. And I don't know if I can raise my hand. It'll be an interesting question. All right. All right. So I count Councilor Wright, Councilor Kalis, Councilor Oliver, Councilor Baker. That's 4. All those opposed, take your hands down, please. Those of you. Okay. Opposed, Councilor Albright, Councilor Danberg. Let's see. We're missing Councilor
Counselor
Krinsman.
Krinsman.
I think
Krinsman.
Counselor
Where's Councilor
Krinsman,
Krinsman? Councilor
He has an
And
item.
Councilor Getz.
And Councilor Getz. All right, Councilor Krinsman, do you wish to be voting?
I think he has an item at finance.
Oh, okay. So I have to count him as absent at the moment.
Absent.
Okay, so the amendment carries, and so that's what I will report to the council, and of course the council can take up and decide this differently, but it may be, let me ask Mr. Heath and Ms. Kreitzer. We've done a lot of work on the inclusionary zoning, and this is still going to require 16 affirmative votes. And I would like to make sure that we get the whole thing passed. And I may have to investigate with the law department whether we can or could divide the item if we had to, so that we could make sure that we get the other things passed. I would not like this to be the issue that would prevent us from doing all of the work that we've done. But
Councilor
I just
Baker,
wanna-
I just want to say, I'm not going to hold up the whole item on this one thing, so I'm still going to vote for the whole thing in the council.
Oh, okay, all right, Councilor Danberg?
Yes, I wanted to say I'm not going to hold it up, but if we could divide the item, that would at least make it clear to everyone that the home ownership issue and the 7 to 19 on the rentals could be separate votes.
Yeah, I think the tricky problem is that if we hold that item, it effectively leaves the current arrangements in place. In other words, the 7 to 9 would be applied for both rental and, in other words, that would be the one change that would not be made at all if we voted the rest of it. Mr. Heath, you want to comment?
I was just going to say, I really appreciate the committee's hard work on this, the many months that we've covered this. And I would defer to my colleague, Ms. Kreitzer, who put in the most work on this. But I wouldn't want to hold up the whole ordinance on this particular issue. I like the idea that many counselors have put forth, which is let's keep an eye on this and see what the effect might be.
Okay, all right, so if that's the case, we may end up having this, it'll be a second call item because it's an item that's been recommitted. Well, actually, I don't know if it has to be a second call item. If it's coming out of committee, it could be the committee report just as amended. So it may need to be that that's a first call item, and if nobody puts it on second call, we can pass it. All right. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Heath. Any comments, further comments? Councilor Krinsman, you were absent for the vote on the amendment, but I would entertain, just because of importance of your participation, if you would like, a motion to reconsider the item just so that we could vote again, if that you would like to be included.
I appreciate that, Mr. Chair, but I didn't hear the discussion, so I don't think it's right to vote.
Okay, all right, thank you. So then I think we are, I would accept a motion to approve the item as amended.
So move.
Okay, all those in favor will say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Abstention?
Opposed.
What are we voting on? Just the
Yeah,
amendment or the whole thing?
Yeah, the whole thing, because we
Oh.
amended part of it, but we have to report the whole thing out.
Right, well, I wasn't clear on that.
I'm sorry, let me be clear. We're just putting the whole package back before the council. So all those in favor say aye. Again, do it one
Aye.
more time.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
I'll
Okay.
abstain.
Okay, one abstention, Councilor Kreisman. Thank you. Okay, I think that concludes our business unless anyone has any. If Councilor Albright, can you stay on for just a minute? I have a for process question for you for the next meeting.
Sure.
Okay, and also Ms. The rest of you, thank you very much. Appreciate you coming out. Ms. Holden, can you stand on, and Mr. Oliver, our Vice Chair, stay on for just a minute? This will be, you can turn off the recording for this purpose, Ms. Holden. I just.
Recording stopped.
Okay, thank
Have a
you
nice
all.
Thanksgiving.
Happy
Happy
Thanksgiving, indeed.